Welcome, friends. So happy to have you here with me today. And before we begin today's podcast, I want to take a moment to just acknowledge the loudness in the world, the fast energy, the emotional energy, the pain. And for many people, there is a sense of overwhelm and fear, frustration, and confusion, really. And even if you're looking out into the world and you don't understand why things are happening the way they're happening, you just you can't put your finger on it. And if you're someone who feels deeply, if you are an empath, if you're sensitive, if you pick up on energy, if you are somebody that is challenged by that, then these moments can feel extra heavy. And so today, I am not here to tell you what to think. I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not going to analyze events or take sides in any way, but I am here to help create a pause, like a breath. And I'm a place where you can come back into your body, come into your heart, and step into your inner knowing. Because when the world is reactive, the power that you have is in being responsive. And my intention is to leave you with, at the end of this episode, feeling steady, feeling clear, and feeling more supported. You're safe here. So let's begin.
So self-service, that's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk, shine today.
All right, friends, thanks for being here. You know, there's a moment that so many people miss where we don't even realize, but we've reacted. We say, something that we didn't mean, or we spiral, or we shut down, or we disconnect. And there's also something else that happens in that space. And I believe it's something that really could change everything and get us out of that reactive place and into a more responsive place, because that is a place where intuition kicks in and intuition begins. Welcome to Soul Talk, my friends, where spirit meets real life. This is a space for real conversations and conscious choice, and always choosing life, choosing light, even when it feels messy, when it feels hard, when it feels challenging. I'm Dawn Johnston, and we're going to dive in. First, I want to take a moment and just get present. Wherever you are, however your day has been going, let's just take a breath. We'll take it in together. As you breathe, I invite you to call in your spirit team, your angels, your guides, and your loved ones in spirit, just to be present with you. Okay. So today we're talking about responding versus reacting. And I want to really help you to understand that this isn't about just being calm all the time. It's not about pushing your emotions down, ignoring them, denying them, hiding them. And it's certainly not about spiritual bypassing. If anything, I would say I'm the opposite of that. But it is about awareness. And the reason this is important is because you cannot hear your intuition when you're reacting. You just can't hear it. Reaction is fast. Reaction is loud. Reaction feels urgent. And then there's the other choice, which is response. And responding, it's different. It creates space. It gives choice, and it allows you to have the time and the space for clarity to come back in. And that's where intuition lives. Intuition lives in that space. And because the world is loud, because there are so many things going on in the world and in your life and in your heart, and everything is fast and emotionally charged, and everyone seems activated. And I've been listening, and I've been listening quietly to the conversations that are being had and to the statements that are being made and to the quite honestly, the judgments that are happening as well. And the things I'm hearing from people as they um, are just talking naturally is, I don't know what to trust anymore. I don't know what to believe. I don't know who to believe. I feel disconnected from myself. I feel disconnected from my intuition. I can't hear my intuition um, anymore. And what I want you to understand is that you aren't disconnected from your intuition. You absolutely are not. What what you are is you are overstimulated, and your nervous system is responding in the way that it was meant to actually respond, because our nervous system, what it's designed to do is it's designed to in a loud, uncertain, scary environment, it's supposed to be loud. It's supposed to take care of you. It's supposed to keep you safe. So it isn't that your intuition leaves, it's that this just comes over it so you can't hear it. Intuition needs space. It needs quiet. And it's very important for us to start recognizing and talking about what actually is happening when our bodies are reacting versus when they're responding. I think that when you start to understand this, it becomes easier for you to have compassion for yourself, um, to change the way you're thinking, to change your patterns without forcing, without being angry or upset. I think it also allows you to have compassion for other people, because when something feels threatening, when it feels overwhelming, or you're getting activated and you're feeling emotionally charged, your nervous system is going to respond before your conscious mind does. So the body isn't just sitting there waiting for you to make logical sense of things. It's going to go straight into protection mode. And it's going into protection mode because that's what it's designed to do. You might be familiar with the terms fight and flight, freeze and fawn. And there's all kinds of experiences that are going to happen literally like in your body. So like your heart rate is going to increase, and your breathing becomes very shallow, and your blood is moving away from the parts of your brain that are responsive, that are responsible for reasoning and for perspective. And it's going to move that energy towards survival. And so in that moment, the body isn't thinking, how should I respond here? The body is saying, I'm not safe. And if I'm not safe, then I need to protect. And that's why reaction is so fast. That's why it feels so like urgent. And it's why oftentimes afterwards, after the fact, we go, gosh, I don't know why I reacted that way. I didn't want to say that, or I didn't mean to say that. It just kind of comes out, right? And that's the way your body actually was designed. But what happens here is that we start to lose our intuition. So when I talk about reaction versus response, and that the moment that your intuition shuts off, that actually, the moment is actually when you go into that fight or flight instinct, when you get into reaction mode. So it isn't because emotion is showing up. Emotion is meant to show up. It is good. It is healthy. We want it to show up. And it's not when just something hard happens or something bad happens, or you're frustrated or you're confused, or even that you've done anything wrong. It doesn't have to be actually any of those things. Intuition shuts off the moment that your nervous system senses the need for survival. So when it enters that survival mode, when your body believes that it is no longer safe, and that moment happens, and it happens quickly. It's happened to all of us, right? You've made this plan. You're like, okay, I'm not gonna flip out when my kid tells me blah, 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 or I'm not gonna act the way I always act when my spouse talks to me about blah, blah, blah. Like, we're not gonna do that. And so we can have that agreement in our mind. But if our nervous system takes over and it gets into that survival mode, then that moment it happens so fast, and you're having all of the physical experiences of it, right? And your body's getting tight and tense, and your thoughts start to almost just build upon themselves or loop around, and everything feels like urgent and like an emergency. And that is the moment where your intuition just shuts down. In that moment, your body is not looking to interpret or to perceive insight and knowledge and wisdom. Your body is, at that time, it's prioritizing your protection. That's what it's doing. And that's why during those times when you are activated, why your intuition feels like it's not there, like it's quiet, or you feel disconnected. And again, it's not because it's gone or that it left, but it's because your system has shifted into survival. And when we look around at the world, not to say there are not things that everybody is getting reactive about, but when our intuition goes quiet in that reactionary state, we don't feel the connection. We actually feel alone. We feel scared. We feel separate from. And I think most people do not understand that your intuition lives, thrives in a grounded, centered, healthy, regulated, calm nervous system. And I want you to think about that for a minute. I want you to think about that for a minute. When your body is in survival mode, the parts of you that are accessing your connection, your insight, your empathy, your inner guidance, and your inner knowing, they're offline. They're not gone, but they are offline. They're they're in the background. They're behind the scenes. So when you're reacting, your intuition is hard to access because your body is prioritizing safety over subtleness. And that subtlety is how our intuition speaks to us, right? Our intuition speaks to us through our seeing and our feeling and our hearing and our knowing. And I think it's important for you to recognize that if you are working to get yourself in a grounded and centered and balanced state, if you're working on your nervous system, if you recognize that the nervous system is highly activated in your life for whatever the reasons might be, it's important to understand that you trying harder to be more intuitive is not going to work. because the body is going to take care of the perceived threats first, which then feels like disconnection. So, what is response actually? Because I think that we think about reaction, and most of you know reaction, but what does response actually look like? So, response is when your nervous system is calm, is able to regulate. So then on a physical level, your breath is going to slow down and your heart rate is going to slow down, and the body is going to start to hear the messages of like, okay, it's okay. I'm all right. And when that happens, your blood starts flowing in a healthy way to the areas of your brain that are going to be connected to your clarity and to your um, um, compassion, to your to perspective. So when we get to that place, it's when we can be more reflective, where we can tune in more and not react as much. Okay. So we get to a place then where we can be present, we can listen, and we don't feel the same need to defend. Okay. You don't feel the same need to defend when you are in the calm, centered, regulated nervous system. When you are somebody who is working towards developing your intuition, calming your nervous system, I want you to recognize that sometimes, and I've heard this a lot out in the world lately, is that if you aren't speaking out, if you're not speaking up, if you're not doing something out in the public, then you're not doing anything. And I would argue differently. I would say that when you are being someone who is focused on responding, you're taking time to take care of your nervous system, your environment, your body, and the energy that you ripple out into the world, which matters. And that nobody is on the same timeline, and we're not meant to be. And when we can get into a grounded, centered state, then we can tap into our intuition and make the choices and the decisions that feel best for us while we're in alignment, not while we're reactive. Because when you get into that responsive state, that is when everything comes back online. And now I can be connected and I can tune in and I can have the empathy and I can have the compassion and I can have that connection. So this is a critical awareness that so many of you are always asking me questions about in wanting to understand how to tap more into your intuition. And there's so many tools, guys, so many tools to tap into your intuition. And I'm going to share a few of these that I think will help you starting to just shift some of that reaction versus response. But I first want you to understand that trying harder and pushing for your intuition isn't what's going to expand it. What's going to expand it is absolutely doing practices. I teach intuition classes every week. So that is very important. But if you are in an activated state, you can't access that connection the same way you can with a calm nervous system. Okay. So I hope that that resonates for you. And I'm going to dive into some tips and some tools that I believe will help support you in being able to tap into your intuition and learn how to be more responsive than reactive. But first, quick reminder, I'm hosting a free live training on February 24th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time called Unlock Your Gifts. I'll teach you simple, grounded framework for trusting your intuition and using it in your day-to-day life. live or replay, is available. Grab your spot in the show notes. All right, friends. So let's talk about some simple tools that you can use in real life, because soul talk is where spirit meets real life. And so these are things that I want you to start being able to use if you are guided to, because you're recognizing, hey, my body is reacting. So this is the first thing, is just saying, okay, my body is reacting right now. So we don't judge it. We don't try to fix it. We don't put it down, condemn it. We just, okay, my body's reacting. That in and of itself begins to start to settle the system. So you don't get into that activated place where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Why am I doing this again? Why is this happening? Right? We get into that really heightened state. Instead, just, okay, my body's reacting. Where my body's reacting. The second thing is you're going to focus on your breath, right? Breath is so, so important and so powerful. And I am certainly not a breath expert. I am working on learning how to be a better breather myself. However, one of the things I know is that when you just take a nice deep breath in and an even deeper exhale, breath out. So when you take that deep breath in and then you extend or you lengthen that breath out, it tells your nervous system, okay, it's safe. At least safe enough to slow down your breath, which means it's safe enough to slow down. Okay. And then the third thing that you can do to just pull yourself into presence and to get yourself centered and grounded is to get oriented into this present moment. And the way you do that is you name one thing that you can see, one thing that you can feel, and one thing that you can hear. So if like I were here right now, do it with me, right? So I can see my microphone. I can feel the warmth from the lights that are shining on me, and I can hear a little buzz from my computer. So, what that does is it brings us out of that survival mode and into the present mode. And in the present mode, and this is something really important to remember if you haven't ever learned this, is when you're in the present mode, then that's where your power is. Present moment, this is where your power is. And what that does is it gives yourself space to acknowledge the presence, the safety that you're in. And I also think what it can do is, and maybe something that would be beneficial for you, is to just give yourself permission. Like, okay, I just need a moment. My term that I use is I'm having a human moment right now. I'm just having a human moment. Just need to breathe, right? I don't need to react. I just need to breathe and feel into it and allow the feelings to come up. So when you are responsive, that's what you're doing, is you're acknowledging the presence of the energy that's with you. You're acknowledging that, okay, I just need to take a moment, or, I'm going to need to get back with you later, or, I'm not ready to make a decision or decide. You are allowed and encouraged to pause. And you pausing, stepping back, is not avoiding something. It is actually diving into your divine intelligence. Think about that for a minute. You're diving into your divine intelligence that is much higher vibration frequency than the reactive part of you. The reactive part of you is important. It's designed to save you, to keep you safe. And when there is no urgent reason why you don't need that, because we think everything needs safety. We think we need to react to everything now because everything's a threat. Most of us are not being chased by lions any longer, right? So those are some tools to help support you. Now, I was reading a book the other day, and one of the um, messages in it really stood out to me, and so I thought I'd share it with you. And it's an ancient teaching. I don't know where it came from, but it talks about muddy water. And the teaching, I might mess it up a little bit, you guys, but the gist of it, okay, is where I thought it really fit well with this conversation is that um, you have a glass of muddy water. And so you've got water, it's got mud in it, and you keep stirring it up, right? You're stirring up the water, stirring up the water, stirring up the water. And what it does is, as long as you keep stirring it up, the water stays cloudy. And it doesn't matter how much you try to move it, it doesn't matter how much you try to force it to get clear, it stays cloudy. Um, no matter the effort that you put into it. You can't get it to not be cloudy, and you cannot see the water versus the mud. But if you stop stirring, if you stop activating it, if you just set the glass down, if you take a couple deep breaths, if you allow for space, quiet, or stillness, the mud settles on its own. The water becomes clear. And the powerful part of that is you didn't have to force it, and you didn't have to actually fix it. You didn't have to do anything. All you had to do was let it be. And when you let it be, then you can see the clarity. You can see literally the line between the mud and the water. So I loved that story when I was listening to it, because I think that that's what reaction does, is reaction stirs up the muddy water and it keeps it muddy. Um, it stirs the water, and I want you to think about how do we do that? Like, I know in my life, the way that I can stir up the water is I can replay the conversation over and over in my head. Like, if I felt like I said something that maybe I shouldn't have said, or that might have been taken wrong, um, or I felt like I should have said something that I didn't say, right? So I could replay the conversation. That's stirring up the water. We could be trying to prove our point, or to justify the emotion, and that's stirring up the water. We could be adding um, energy to a situation or to a circumstance that just needs stillness, right? Maybe you're having an argument with somebody, and you just keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I'm sure that you've all done that. You're like, yep, this is a cycle, and this is what we do, and this is what, here we go. We go over and over and over again. I learned this in my relationship with my dad, and it never changed, right? I'd have my reaction, he'd have his reaction. Did it react, react, react? This is the dance we do. Until Spirit one day said, quit dancing, quit reacting. And if you quit reacting, then he needs to go get a different dance partner, right? So when we add that energy to the circumstance of the situation that we keep stirring up, it keeps being muddy, and we wonder why it keeps showing up that way. Well, it makes sense. And then we'll say things like, okay, but I can't hear my intuition, or I don't know what to do, or my angels and guides are no longer with me. And the truth of the matter is, nothing changed. That they haven't left. It's just that your water is muddy. It's still stirred up. So the response is setting the glass down. And the response is to take a breath before the reply, to maybe pause and take a step back before you make a decision. Because the moment that you choose to not add more energy to whatever the circumstance is that you might um, be reacting to, that is a healthy choice. It isn't saying you don't care. And it isn't saying that you that the circumstance, the situation doesn't need to be followed up or it doesn't matter. It's just saying, I need to ground and center my energy and connect with my spirit first before I have a response. And we see this in relationships all the time, right? You've all had this experience. How can we do it different? Right? I think that, when I think about intuition specifically and opening up our intuition, it happened a little bit different for me because I wasn't looking to become intuitive. I wasn't asking spirit to help me to be more intuitive. And I certainly wasn't taking any classes or workshops 41 years ago to develop my intuition. But what I do know is that when I started opening up consciously, when I started recognizing that intuition was something that I was experiencing, but I didn't really understand how I was experiencing it. That, and I guess I probably didn't even have words to explain what it was. What I did know is that I was struggling with trusting myself. Like I would have these feelings in my body, but I didn't really know where they were coming from or how to relate them to anything. And they didn't they weren't consistent, so it didn't happen all the time. And so then I would think, okay, maybe I'm imagining this, or maybe I'm just making this up, or maybe I'm nuts, or um, maybe I'm overly emotional about something. And what I started to recognize was that my intuition um, could be really what I would say was crystal clear. It could be crystal clear um, in moments that I was present. But when I was not, I still felt like it was intuition, but it was absolutely, I was overwhelmed and I was reactive and I was activated. And what I had to learn was that there was a difference between that and fear. And the fear was what was I was thinking was my intuition, and it was not. It was my fear, which was an unsettled nervous system, right? An unregulated, dysregulated nervous system. But I didn't know that at the time. And so part of the training that I did, and I did a lot of this actually with the spirit world, specifically with the angels, was learning how to um, go into quiet space, which isn't typical for me. Like I'm a outgoing, busy, do a lot of things, kind of noisy, got a lot of big energy person, right? And even in my teen years, I wasn't quite like that, but I certainly wasn't comfortable in silence. And what I learned was that I really needed to tap into that quiet space in order to be the receiver of the intuition. So it's not like it was like these big, loud, dramatic things. I had those happen too. But in learning to develop my intuition, it was getting quiet, and it was getting present, and it was getting calm, and it was getting centered, and it was getting still. And certainly I have witnessed over 25 years of teaching that so many people, they just push, like they want to try harder and harder and harder. And that doesn't help. You can try too hard, and trying too hard doesn't make it happen any quicker. What we want to do is we want to get into a state where we can be the observer, where we can take a step back, where we can be present to the energies and let spirit speak from that space. And so I want to invite you into, because I know that so many of you are wanting to connect with your angels and your guides and your loved ones in spirit. And, you know, I believe this is also how guidance works. Like our angels don't come in and interrupt the reactions we're having. They don't sit and if we're in a chaotic situation, sit and scream over chaos. They don't. They don't force their way in. What they do is they meet us in the quiet spaces. They meet us in stillness. They communicate with us through gentleness, through nudges, through reminders, through feelings, through awareness. And and it's the same with our loved ones in spirit and our guides. They come to us in places of calm, which I think explains why so many people feel it as inconsistency. So you might feel like your guidance is inconsistent, and it isn't because you're doing something specifically wrong, um, but it is because they can't come into the space if you're not present to receive them, if you're not open to receive them. And if you're in reaction mode, you can't hear. Okay. So the loved ones, our angels, our spirit guides, they're going to come in those subtle ways. Now, if they are trying to get you a message, they're trying to give a message to you, and they're knocking and you're not answering, they're knocking and you're not answering, sometimes then the message gets louder. Okay. The message gets louder. So those are what I call like the spiritual 2x4s. Ever got one of those? Spiritual 2x4s? Yes, those are a real thing, right? So what we can do instead of, why am I not hearing? Why are they not talking to me? Where did they go? Those kinds of things. Maybe ask yourself, where or how can I get into presence now? Because when you start to slow down, then you give your intuition that space. Slowing down is going to look different for every person. Guys, my slowing down is going to look different than your slowing down. But intuition is it's never yelling and it's never shouting. It's not fast and quick. It's not like this strong pressure. It's grounded and it's calm and it's centered, and it will feel like, yeah, of course, like that. It will just feel like there's a resonance to it. So if something feels urgent and panicky and demanding, that is not your intuition. That is your activation. That is your fear. That is your ego. That is not your spirit. That is not your intuition. And when you start to learn that difference, which I'll be sharing throughout the podcast here, when you start to learn that difference, then I think it will be one of the most important things I could teach you, one of the most important skills that you can develop right now, on the heels of so much of the experiences that are happening in the world, on the changes that are happening in our environment, on the um, precipice of whatever journey AI takes us on. The thing that you can count on when you learn how to develop this skill is intuition. And I think it's critical that we learn it now. And one of the ways to begin to learn it in a greater, stronger, healthier way is to learn how to not react and instead respond. So friends, now I hope that gave you some tools. I hope it gave you some feedback and some understanding and some recognition and of your own skills, of your own abilities. I hope that has been helpful for you. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to move into our heart-to-heart segment. So the heart-to-heart segment, this is a 15-minute space where I take your questions or your reflections or some of your real life experiences that you may be using. You can call them in, you can send them in, you can put them in the chat. So let's see, we did create a new heart-to-heart song. And so I'm going to play just a little segment of it. And then maybe at the end or somewhere along the way, I can play the whole song.
Got a question on your mind, bring it to the light. Every So pull up a chair, let your spirit speak. This is where real life and the sacred meet. Heart to heart with Sunday, where your voice is heard.
So here we go, friends. I'm going to pop into the chat, see if we have any questions that are coming in. If you have questions, please throw those in. And I'm going to start with the question that was emailed into us. So I'm going to start there. And then I will take some of the questions in the chat because we have a lot of people that are here with us live. So glad to have all of you with us. So let's go into our question. So here's the question. I haven't even read it yet. So let's dive in. This is off the cuff. Okay. What feels heavy in my heart right now is being silent for over 54 years about narcissistic financial abuse from family, partners, and corporations. While I refuse to play a victim, this pattern of power grabs while refusing accounting and blaming and smearing me for asking for transparency and reimbursement has been more than enough to not speak up publicly about. My son has died from this as having my narcissistic ex-husband alienate and refuse payments, taking properties, etc., while smearing me. I need help rebuilding my life and having a strong voice in the world of no more. This ends with me. Whew, that is a powerful question, powerful statement as well. First and foremost, I would say, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad that you have the awareness of the fact that you are not willing to any longer accept that kind of abuse. And sometimes situations like that and circumstances like that teach us what we're no longer willing to accept. And I hear that this has been for a long time. And also, everything helps us to grow and expand that we cross paths with in our life, the hard stuff, especially. And so if you are feeling that pull to use your voice and to speak up and to not be silenced any longer, then I think that the more aware you are of some of the patterns that allowed it in the past can help you to empower yourself in the future. One of the things we'll talk about, and I've said often, is, and I have to remind myself of this because it's not always easy for me as well, is that no is a complete sentence. You can just say no. And so when you said, I want to say no more, yes, you can do that. And it's going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to feel unsettled and it's going to feel probably out of alignment with who you've been. But that doesn't mean that it's not important for who you be now. And the other thing is when you've had narcissistic family members, I'm also in that club. Much of the time is spent trying to figure out if you're losing your mind, right? Because there is absolutely what they now call gaslighting. We didn't have a word for this 30 and 40 years ago when I was being raised. But gaslighting and the way that you have a tendency to want to believe what they're saying or what they're doing, that it is healthy, right, true, etc. And so I think that when you've had that experience, it takes some time to unwind out of that. I know it did for me. And we have to be very patient with ourselves during that process. And so I would encourage you to not only have patience with yourself and be gentle with yourself and loving with yourself, because when you're in those circumstances, you're being victimized. Now, you said, I'm not willing to be a victim. And I 100% agree. I am not a victim. But we can be victimized. And so you were victimized and you're choosing to step in as a victim, as not as a victim. So yes, you were victimized and you are not a victim. And so you get to stand in that power and that strength and that courage. And that is incredible bravery. And give yourself that credit. Give yourself that kindness and that love and that compassion. And, I saw a post yesterday, I actually put on my stories that said, unlearning is the most important learning there is. I think it was by Rumi. And man, do I agree with that 100%. We have to unlearn all the patterns and behaviors and belief systems that were trained into us um, by people that oftentimes didn't know better, didn't recognize what they were doing, and for some that absolutely intended to take advantage of, right? And so the other thing I would encourage you to do is I would encourage you to develop your intuition, because when you can start developing your intuition, then it isn't any longer a question of, okay, am I making this up? Is this real? Is this not real? But it's, I know. I know in my heart. I know. And you start to believe that and you start to recognize your connection, they don't have power over you any longer. So taking your life back, rebuilding your life, one foot in front of the other, and make sure that you have community support. I know for me that's been such an important thing, and it's one of the reasons why I've created communities over and over and over again in my life, is because for the 15 years that I was really embracing and learning how to step in to my intuition and all things spiritual and spiritual development and mediumship and all the things, was I didn't have community. And man, did I need it. I would have, not that I would take anything back, it served its purpose, but man, would I have benefited from some community. And so I would encourage community as well. Thank you very much for your question. That's a great question. I hope it resonates for many of you. So then let's talk about um, one of the questions that I have had lots of people ask me recently is, how do I know? This has been coming up a lot of times in the intuition class. And then last week I was in Canada, and this question came up a couple of times by people coming up to me and asking me, is, how do I know that it's actually my intuition versus just what I want it to be, right? Or how do I know that it's my intuition versus my fear? Okay, these are two questions I get a lot. And what I will tell you is that intuition is generally not going to be fear based. So it isn't going to be that. It doesn't mean that you won't get messages like, do this, but it's not coming from a place of like panic. It's not like that reactive place. It's a responsive place like, okay, do this. Like you could be driving down the road and you could maybe get this feeling and get into this full on panic attack about something that you have a fear that's going to happen. And then in the same scenario, you could be driving down the road and you could just hear a voice that just says, turn right, like right now. There's no question about it. And you just listen, turn right. Then there is no reactiveness. There is no fear in it. It's just literally turn right. And it's almost like it's bypassing that fear, because I think intuition does, when you're connected with it, it helps us to open up. It helps us to 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 not have to go through certain experiences if we don't need to. And when we're listening, it's much easier to bypass the hard stuff. It makes life more full. It makes life more connected. It I think it brings ease. It doesn't make life easy, but it brings more ease because you're not alone. And so I would say that when you start to get that intuition, or what you think is intuition, but it's very active, like there's a whole bunch of fear going on, then you have to take a step back. That's where you're in that reactive mode. And it takes us right back to our topic of today, which is you're in reaction. You can't even hear your intuition. So if there's that anxiety coming up, if there's that reactive energy coming up, that's how you know it's not intuition. This is your ego. This is your fear. This is your head playing scenarios out of what could happen, not necessarily what is actually real your within your guidance system. So I hope that answers that question. Okay. And I don't think we had any other questions. We had lots of beautiful comments. So I'm so glad you guys enjoyed all of that. Turning off the noise in your head. That, yes. So I think if we've learned something today from today's conversation, it is to be still. Take a step back. Don't allow yourself to feel the pressure of others, and don't allow other people to project things onto you that are not true. All right. I've seen a lot of projection. Social media, it's so easy to see projection, right? Like it's everywhere. But I see it so much in people having an expectation that everybody is supposed to handle things the way that they expect them to handle things or to do things or to comment on things or to show up in things. And here's the thing, friends, some of you are people, and I know so many of you that are the kind-hearted, gentle, loving people that are committed and devoted to your friends and your family and creating a full life. And maybe you are someone that takes 15 minutes every day and visualizes light surrounding each and every person on this planet. That is so much more powerful than making a post about anything. It is what we're here to do. We are here to shine our lights. We are here to be a lighthouse. And there is no wrong way to be a lighthouse. And people do it in all different forms. So don't buy into the projection that you need to be or do something any different than the way you're being or doing it, unless or until your intuition, your spirit, your higher self says so. But the humans that are around you, and they're finger pointing, don't allow yourself to go down that road with them. You honor you and humanity because we're here to support the light. And that shows up in a zillion different ways. And no one knows your soul's journey better than you. So as we close today, friends, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for showing up. I want to thank you for being willing to pause. I want to thank you for choosing presence and awareness. We're going to be here every Tuesday, same time, same place. And just a reminder, if this episode supported you in any way, if you enjoyed it, if you got value out of it, please comment on the video. That always helps. Please like it, subscribe, follow, all the things. Share it far and wide. We've got it on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Share it on your social or with somebody that you know might just need to hear some of these words. And today, please remember that when we allow our divinity to guide our humanity, love becomes the thing that we live every single day. And you're not alone. I love you, and I'll see you next time.
So self-service, that's the way. Welcome to Soul Talk, shine today.